You're listening to the Mentors for Military podcast with your hosts, Robert Gowan, Rudy Lindsay, Mike Pritz, and Kat Kalin. Hey guys, Robert here. On this episode, Brian and Sean from Keep Calm and Save Lives, or you know them as KCSL on Instagram, join me as hosts. We talk about the subject of humility after seeing a post from Damian, a retiring Navy EOD, who posted about a lesson his grandfather taught him after Damian returned from combat. So sit back and relax and enjoy another episode of Mentors for Military. What kicked this whole podcast off, by the way, was actually Damian. Damian's the one that posted this post about a conversation he and his grandfather had. And that just like really floored me. And, I thought it was a really good lead in to this episode and doing a show around humility. And I don't know if you guys have ever met or if you guys follow each other online, but Damian's a former Navy EOD and served several.
Yeah, I have one more month and I'm out.
One more month and he's out.
Oh, good on you.
Close to me there, Damian. I have two.
Yeah.
So Brian and Sean still on active duty, Air Force PJs, and Damian, are you retiring or is it just ETSing?
They're retiring me.
Okay, got you.
Yeah, they're medically retiring me.
Yeah. So good deal. But maybe it'd be a great.
But yeah, I follow you guys. I followed you guys on Instagram once. Rob told me about you guys.
Cool.
Yeah,
Thanks. Back.
Yeah, for sure.
So maybe it'd be kind of cool, Damian, for you to kind of kick the show off and tell a little bit more deeper version of that story, because I know you only had so many characters that you could put within the Instagram profile or post. So it'd be really cool to kind of hear that whole conversation, and especially around the story about your grandfather, because there's some pretty cool history there just with him alone.
Yeah, I mean, that story I think was a little longer than what I put on Instagram, but what happened was just to give a background on my grandfather, he was World War II. He was a bombardier in World War II and with the 8th Air Force, and he was shot down on one of his last missions. They were shot down. They survived, and they were evading in the countryside in Germany. And what the story was, and he had told me this a long time ago, they had gotten captured, and he had spent about a year in the prison camp and then had come home. So I grew up, he was kind of the male influence on my life, I guess, from the time I was 11 on. And when I had come home, so I didn't join the Navy. I was 29 when I was living in New York City when the attacks happened. And I was 29 when I joined, so I was almost 30. So by the time I went to war, Afghanistan the first time, in 2010, I was 36. I wasn't like a kid in any way. So I had gotten home from my first deployment in 2011, and my mother, I had told my mom, she said, well, how did it go? Like, what was it like? And I was like, oh, it was good. And, whatever, it was intense, but whatever. And we had lost one of our CCTVs that I worked, Mark Forster, had been killed, and one of the 18 Deltas on ODA had been killed. I wasn't there that day. I had moved to the commando mission, but so they had asked me about that, and I said, yeah, I mentioned that I'd gotten an award. She said, well, I got a Bronze Star. It was like my first one, and she's like, oh, bring it home and show Pop or tell him. I was like, no, I'm not coming. I'm not going to show him. He would definitely. He had a way of like putting you in your place, kind of.
Right.
But so I came home. And this was ended up being the last time I saw him alive. He died a year later, before my second deployment. So I was talking to him outside, and we were sitting outside in this patio furniture in Florida. And he said, "Your mom said you got an award." I said, "Yeah." And he said, "That's great. Are you proud of that?" And I said. And I knew this was a pointed question. That there was he wouldn't just ask this randomly. I said, I don't know, Pop. I mean, should I not be proud of that? And he said, kind of went in to tell me that what does pride do for you? What is being proud of that? What would that really mean to you? Like, think about that. And as I thought about it, I said, yeah, to me like, what kind of sounds silly to say that I'm proud of myself in any way. Kind of sounds ridiculous, in a way. And he said that you don't have to be proud of yourself. Other people will be proud of you. And that in his mind, pride was kind of a dangerous thing. It could be a dangerous thing and kind of a divisive thing. And he said, yes, it's just a word, but you could say you're honored by that, or it should be humbling to you. You should be honored, and that should humble you. That entire experience should humble you. And I said, yes, absolutely, it does. I was incredibly humbled by the experience. And he said, well, that's good. That's what you should feel. But let us be proud of you. Let your friends and your family, be proud of you and say that. You don't rarely have to use that word. And it just stuck with me as something that was really powerful, because it, I don't know if you want me to go into this more about how this all came up with the ribbons.
Yeah.
So what happened was I was taking my uniform apart, or just, taking my uniform, throwing my uniforms into a bag last week, and I had taken the ribbons off, and I don't have a shadow box. I don't keep stuff really. I don't keep, I'm not that kind of person. I don't hang up things or, so I was throwing my ribbons and my EOD badge. In a little box, I have a couple of coins that I've kept from their deployments in Afghanistan and stuff like that. But I was putting them away, and it reminded me I was doing this award. They put me up for Sailor of the Year when I had come back from my third deployment. So this was 2013. I guess I came home from the last one. And they wanted to put me up for Sailor of the Year, and I said, no, I'd rather not. I'm not a huge fan of going through those things. And I said, I was like, senior chief, I have tattoos on my hands. Like, there's probably not the person you want representing the community, and they're probably not going to be, probably not going to go over that well. And he just laughed and he said, well, you're going to do it anyway. And I said, okay, great. So I went up there, and what they do is you're kind of waiting in the hallway, and they bring you in, and I'm sure you guys know it's all the same as any military kind of award, and they ask you some questions. And I was sitting at a table, and this one, I was in E6 at the time, and this one chief asked me, he's like, which of all the awards you're wearing, I was in my dress blues, of all those devices on your chest, which one are you the most proud of? And it just took me back to what my grandfather said, and I kind of forgotten about what he had told me, and it just kind of came flushing back, and I said, I'm not proud of anything, but the one that means the most to me is my first Afghan campaign medal. And he kind of tilted his head, and he said, really? And I said, yeah. And he said, why? And I said, because of the team. I said, because we were all different back then. Chad was still alive, and me and Chad Redwin, one of my friends, was killed on his second time over, and while I was over there on my second deployment, and just as I was putting those ribbons away, it brought me back to that moment, and it made me think of my grandfather and just what that kind of meant when he said that, and how I had forgotten it for a while, and to come back to that, what he said, and just that kind of way of thinking, was something I felt would be helpful, for me, like in the future, becoming like a veteran, like retiring and not kind of holding on too tight to all these things and just keeping things in perspective. So that's what that post is mostly about.
Which was an awesome post, and I think it resonated with so many different people. I mean, humility in a lot of ways is one of those things that's so hard to swallow for some people. I mean, it's not an easy thing to be humble. It's one of those it almost comes with age. So it's kind of interesting that your grandfather presented. I just kind of feel at least that it usually comes with age. Not everybody at an early age. They probably feel more proud of certain things and want to show it and demonstrate it in certain ways. I mean, you think about social media and how in social media, Brian, we talked about this before, about how everybody wants to display the moment and everything that's going on because they're wanting to be prideful and demonstrate what they're doing and feel like everybody wants to be a part of it. But humility is one of those things that I just think comes with age. Over time, you end up, most people, I think, end up becoming very humble.
Yeah, and I'm curious, kind of like what drives the fact that people get more humble with age. Do you think it's just perspective on where they are
Yeah.
in
Yeah, I
their
do.
lives, where they are in the universe? Is it a better understanding of other people around them? Like, what do you guys think?
I think it's all of the above. I think it's one of those things that wisdom comes about through trials, tribulations, and errors, and learning from your mistakes and all those types of things. And I think along with that, those things that you probably were very excited about for yourself, you begin to realize that being humble is much more important, and bringing up others around you and elevating them to another level is much more important than being the person out front. And Damian, I know I've mentioned this to you before, that at some point it'll be really good to bring out those ribbons, to bring out those things, to
Sure.
people call them a pride wall, or they call them my I love me walls and stuff like that. But it's a way of it's really a way of in some regards honoring those that serve with you as well, because that's what it is for me. Every one of those things have a story, and if you want to sit down and listen, I can tell you a story, much like what you just did in terms of Chad
Right.
and what occurred and stuff like that. That to me, that's wisdom, and that's through time learning to be humble.
Yeah, and I think sometimes I know people come to me and they'll ask me, and I don't mean to belittle it or anything like that. It's just that's kind of my way, and they mean a lot to me. Make no mistake about it. All those experiences and all of those things have. It's like the tattoos or whatever. They all have like a story, and I'm appreciative of all the experiences and. I mean, I could do away with many of my tattoos that I wish I didn't have, but especially on my hand. Getting your hand tattooed in Afghanistan, maybe not the greatest idea.
Yeah.
But,
Still a cool story, though.
It's hardcore. That is a cool story.
maybe not the greatest decision I've ever made, but
Next episode, tattoos
I
in
appreciate
Afghanistan.
yeah, awesome.
I'm down.
But, it was good, man. It's good to. I mean, I treasure those moments. I treasure the experiences. But like you said, and like everybody said, I think with age, I think sometimes I don't have kids of my own, but I think when people have, as they get older and they have families and they have children, I think that seems to, at least my friends, change. I mean, I'm 43 now, so I definitely hope that I attain humility with age. But I think it seems to be a lot of times like people that have families seem to change all their priorities as well.
Yeah,
I've seen that for sure. And going back to the military thing, I think at least in our career field, the guys with the most combat experience with the craziest saves, those guys seem to be the most humble. So maybe it is experiences, maybe it's kind of being proud of other people's stuff, like your grandfather said, let others be proud for you. Maybe it's just kind of like having those experiences or something, but it's definitely, like, from my perspective as a young guy on the team, it's the older guys who have the most combat experience are by far the most humble. I don't know what it is, but because if I was those guys, there's a lot of times where I feel like I'd be like, yeah, look at my ribbon rack, like, it's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but you guys know in the military, I mean, it also gets, I don't know about your community, if it's this, but sometimes in like the Navy, there's like the EOD community, it's like, you definitely get sized up when you're in your uniform. Like, guys look at your ribbon, and you can feel it. You can see it. I can see them look at my, you know what I mean? You see it.
Oh,
Absolutely.
Yeah. They're sizing you up. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And you all know this. Like, a lot of times those awards, in reality, don't really mean that. I mean, they do mean a lot, but I mean, I know you guys know stories where guys got awards. You're like, wow, what?
Yeah.
What? Like,
it's all about how you write it up on a awards package.
Right up.
And vice versa, when somebody did something phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
Was
absolutely.
Forgotten about in the mix. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. It's all about who was around.
Yeah.
Who you went to rescue, what nation they're from.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like, I think all this.
A lot of political factors in the mix.
Oh, so many, yeah.
Yeah, just hearing about kind of the impact that your grandfather had in your life, I'm reminded that largely a lot of humility that I've been able to experience through my military time has been just looking at other people. Like Sean said, we have some we have some guys on the team who've just really knocked some missions out of the park in combat. And I always like to, I can catch myself building up kind of a pride of, oh, that's the mission that I can accomplish. But then when I hear how they did it phenomenally, but they portray it in such a like calm and, listening way as well, man, it kind of like puts me back into my place of, how would I have reacted in those situations, and, kind of what humility in combat as well is huge, and what derives from that.
Well, I also think like real combat, if you're not humbled, it's going to slap you in the face. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to get it. Every moment, if there was a time on any deployment, I was like, oh, I'm getting pretty good at this. It was like, wham. You know what I mean? Okay,
Yeah.
You think you're good at this? Now we're going to slap you. Someone lost their limb or whatever. You know what I mean? Or you missed one, or I missed an idea, or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
So it was always there, especially after I only did Afghanistan deployments. I never was able to go anywhere else. But, real combat will humble you. I mean, it has to. If you're in real combat and you come out of that humble, there's something off. How they said that the most experienced guys were the most humble. The guys that had been through the most, like the worst situations, they'd come out of it the most humble. And I was just saying, well, I think that if you go to real combat, if you're in real situations where your life is really in danger, and you're inevitably going to lose people you know. I don't think there was any deployment. I mean, there was no deployment to Afghanistan where we didn't lose someone. I mean, or someone at least lost, was probably going to lose limbs, and so I mean that was an inevitable thing that was going to happen. But if you don't come out of that humbled, something's wrong with you.
Yeah.
And because you realize, all of us, I mean, EOD wise at least in the Navy, it's an incredible amount of I don't like to use the word luck, but chance, and that you make it out of there. I mean, I knelt right on an I was kneeling right on an IED, that ended up blowing up the 10th guy through the threshold,
Yeah.
We all stepped right on it, and then the last Afghans blew up. So,
wow.
I mean, that was my first. Within my first 6 weeks, we'd had two, that happened twice, or whatever. So, and then we were just talking about how the countryside in Afghanistan, they were talking about how they had just come back from them, and just the terrain would humble me. It will slap you in the face if you ever got cocky, or for a moment. I mean, there's a degree of brashness that's useful, I think, in combat. But if you overconfident at any time, that war for me, it had a way of slapping me in the face and saying, okay, you thought you were good at this? This is the reality.
That's the thing about humility, I think, is that it's such a fine line. Like, you need that confidence, but you need to also be humble. It's such a weird thing, like, especially in like our kind of career fields. Like, I'm sure it was the same for you as it is for us. Is I really only made it through. A lot of guys really only made it through because their sense of self. Like, I just didn't want to say the words I quit because I was too prideful. Yeah, I'm sure it was the same for you, and I'm sure there's a lot of scenarios in which you're like, you know what, I'm gonna save this team. I'm gonna fix this. I'm gonna disarm this or whatever because I can, because I'm the guy to do it right now. And
yeah.
So, but there's also that, okay, when do I take a step back and say, all right, I really need to be humble here. Like, let the others be proud for me. All of that. So it's really this fine line, and I think you going into the civilian world here soon, and with Brian, I'm about a year behind you guys, but I'll be there with you, is thinking, how am I going to market myself, but also be humble about my military experience. So, humility it's really hard to nail down, I think.
It is. It's a really fine line, yeah.
Yeah, when you said that, I think what you're kind of describing too, though, Sean, is self-awareness. I mean, you're kind of in order to be humble, there has to be a sense of self-awareness, because nobody loves an egomaniac. I mean, nobody loves somebody that's out there trying to pump themselves up so much, and those are people that are probably not very self-aware. They're just individuals that want to go out there, lift themselves up, and like we were talking about, a true person, and whether it's a leader or an individual who is trying to display humility, you'll know it, because they're actually they're actually putting themselves down. They're looking for somebody to bring them up in some ways. Or they're very confident, and not to a sense of arrogance, but like you said, maybe there's a sense of confidence that resonates with them, where you can tell both that they're a confident and humble individual. And I think those are not always traits that you find in all leaders, by the way. I think that in leadership, you tend to find individuals that are quickly trying to climb the ladder, whether it's in the military through getting additional rank or out here in the private sector in which you're trying to grow into various positions. In a lot of cases, they become less self-aware. They become very arrogant, and they're not very humble.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a decent definition of pride that I've learned is just thinking more of yourself than you ought to.
Mm-hmm.
And something that does, no matter where you are in your life, it stops you. And I'm going to lead into a quote I wrote down before this is, some never get started on their destiny because they cannot humble themselves to learn, grow, and change. And Sean and I have a little saying that goes along with that, is like, you'll become a little king in a little kingdom very quickly.
Yeah.
That mentality.
Like a big fish in a small pond.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's way to Navy up that term.
Yeah, I had to Navy that up. Yeah.
It's treating people as you want to be treated. You know, I think that has a lot to do with it, and being, having some empathy for whatever other people are going through, and that's kind of a sign of humility as well. Being self-aware of your surroundings as well as yourself.
I just wanted to say, like, I didn't come to this easily. I mean, I've been going to counseling for quite a while. I mean, I went through, I was definitely no saint. I mean, I know I was arrogant at times, and especially maybe in my job, I thought, I had always wanted to be, not even great. I don't think there's being great at this, but proficient and be a good enabler for the mission.
Yeah.
Just make sure that the guys were getting to their mission and they were safe and they didn't step on anything. That was it. If it was ODA or infantry guys or the SEAL team or whoever I was deployed with, that was always the goal. But I also, as well as I had done, I will say this, in my professional, if I had attained any kind of proficiency at my professional life, I definitely did not do that in my personal life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So part of this self-awareness for me was, okay, I need to look at everything in my life, because if I'm humble in my job, or if I'm doing well there, but I'm really not that at all to my family, then what am I? Then I'm a fraud.
No.
You know what I mean? Is how I felt. You know what I mean? I was like, I'm a fraud. And at one point, I kind of felt like that a couple of years ago. I mean, not thoroughly, but in a way. And that took, like what you guys were saying, I mean, being self-aware, it's not super fun all the time, but with also, I think, like Robert used to, with age and maturity, hopefully, comes some real self-awareness, because it's taking real stock in your flaws and hoping, like you guys were just saying, like that quote, it just reminded me of that. It's like getting out, and now I'm going to go to college. I chose kind of not to go into a career field similar to this. I was like, I want to go to school. And so that was, but all of that with that quote that you guys just said kind of exemplified, that part of that journey for me, at least.
Yeah, because I think one of the things that, you and I talked about, Damian, is the false humility. Those individuals that try to portray as though they're humble.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's such an oxymoron, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, I brought that up because a lot of that is social media. Like, I see hashtag stay humble, and it's some like dude like without his shirt on, like some like soft guy with no shirt on and a calendar. I was like, what are you doing, man? Like,
I'm the most humble person you know.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, I get it.
Well, because he hashtagged it, that means it's definitely true, right?
I know.
Of course, yeah.
That's true. Yeah, I've always been told that a humble person will never admit that they're humble.
Ah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's tough.
I mean, the social media thing, I think, is just, it's almost, everybody's ego is I mean, we're all victims for it. I'm not saying I have no ego. I do. And when things feed your ego, like, it's always going to feel great. But I mean, you got to keep it in perspective. I mean, some people, I just think it's gotten so incredibly out of hand. You know what I mean? It's like, I just feel bad for like the next generation. You know, like who are they going to look up to? You know, who are the people you have around to look up to?
Yeah, we are inherently selfish human beings, right? And I think the more that we give in to our desires, you know, to an unhealthy extent, it kind of clouds out what might be reality around us of being able to recognize other people and be able to listen to others before having to feel like we have to share our opinions. I think humble people largely listen way more than they speak, because they just see the value in hearing before speaking.
You know, I said that to you, Damian, about the post on your grandfather. I mean, you know, individuals of that generation, I think, too, sometimes had so much to say without ever saying a word. You know what I mean? I mean, they just really, when they did speak, there used to be an old commercial we used to joke about called E.F. Hutton. You know, when E.F. Hutton speaks, everybody listens. But yeah, and you know, in this case here, it's kind of the same thing of that generation. When you have somebody that speaks very little and does come across that confident and has something to say, or when they do have something to say, it means something. Words are chosen very carefully. Wow. I mean, it can be a very powerful experience. And those individuals are pretty rare.
I found those individuals carry presence, though. Like, because others are, as Damian's grandfather explained, you know, proud for that person, there's almost like a sense of what other people admire about that person. It just goes around with them, and that guy doesn't need to validate it. Everyone's thinking it. And the second he opens his mouth, ears and eyes are towards him.
Yeah, I think my mom, like I said, when I was younger, my mom was very kind of quiet. Had a lot of kind of that kind of quiet strength. Was pretty intense, and I definitely looked to her for example. I know growing up, I definitely emulated her, but she. I think she told me once something like the loudest person in the room is usually the weakest. So be wary of that.
Yeah.
You know? Which probably meant my dad. I think she was probably. But
that's fine.
Yeah, for sure. But no, I'm just kidding. But I thought that was an interesting kind of perspective, and I always remembered that. And that was an interesting kind of way.
Well, we talked about like kind of the nonverbal and the way they carry, you know, people carry themselves and everything, but you can also talk about the actions as well. So when somebody does something, you can really discover or notice rather quickly whether somebody's truly humble and as they feel that they are, because you know, I think what is there a saying, something like your actions are speaking so loud I can't hear what you're saying, or something of that nature. There's some saying that goes like that. So, yeah.
Actions speak louder than words.
Yeah. I mean, seriously.
It's all good. It's not going to change the way mustard tastes.
Never does. That's the crazy thing. That's actually this mustard's fire.
All right. Well, Brian, you're going to have to take us home. You're the one that put these great notes together, so I know you have some way to wrap this up.
No, I'll do it. That quote was a trigger to nailing this. So I'm going to start big and go small. So a healthy understanding of your place in the universe as you know it is a good start to being humbled. And what I'm going to try to do here is kind of like give application now towards how you can humble yourself. So just some numbers. I always like starting with that. 107 billion people have ever lived in the universe. All right, that's a lot. Okay, so how about space? Right, observable universe is 46 billion light years across. 1 light year is 5.88 trillion miles. So obviously, there's so much that we don't understand, and you can narrow that down to our micro universes, whether it be your family, whether it be work, and in your social life as well. So in the military, do I have reason to brag because of my environment? Because it could be bigger than I think it is. Maybe I should take a step back and look at it. Where is my mission now? And I think one of the best ways that you can start right now to humble yourself is seek feedback and don't talk back.
You know, when Damian and I seen that you were going to be talking about 107 billion people and 46 billion light years, I got to tell you, the mind just like, we didn't know where you were going to go with this.
I was like, man, that's so much smarter than me.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it's wild. And I think...
You just Googled it.
Yeah, I did.
You just Googled it.
Yeah, I didn't gather that. But I just like applying those huge examples to what it could be in your perceived world around you.
Yeah.
And for me, at work, maybe there is like those kind of numbers in the minute details within my work, and I just don't recognize them yet. But I want to understand those things. So, as I said, one of the best ways that I've done that, or it's painful, I don't want to say I've done it well, but is to seek feedback from those around you, and don't feel like you have to say something back from it. So.
Yeah. I think, in covering what you just said, too, I've seen I don't know if it was National Geographic or something like that at some point, did kind of a camera pullback, and it showed an individual like in New York City walking down the street, and then it went up, and it's like at a skyscraper level. It went further back, and it's kind of showing, Manhattan, and you pull back even further, and it's showing you the U.S., and you pull back further, and it's the actual Earth, the planet, and it goes all the way back, until, I don't know, billions and trillions of light years away, and you begin to realize how small of a speck that you truly are in time and space. So now I just totally blew your mind, didn't I? See, I was hoping.
I'm like,
this is a true. I don't want to have the last word, Robert, but I have to now. So Canis Majoris is the largest star that we've found, and if the Earth were the size of a golf ball, you could fill the state of Texas 22 inches high in golf balls, and that's how many Earths would fit inside this one star.
Damian?
That's crazy. Dude, that is absolutely crazy.
That is crazy. Where do you come up with this stuff, Brian?
We got on space. We got on space. Like, now we're just going to start talking about, it's going to be a science podcast.
Now the Earth is flat.
Yeah. Oh, my. Don't even get me started on the whole flat Earth thing.
No, I can't.
It's insane.
Yeah. No, I can't take credit for that. That was Louis Giglio. How great is our God? Great talk.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Hey, Damian, I will say, I speak for everyone here, and when I say, your grandfather's right, man, we're proud for you. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
You guys too, man. Thanks for everything
I
you
wish
do.
you luck. Wish you luck in the civilian world. I looked you up on LinkedIn as we were talking, so I saw you're living in San Diego. That's where I'm from. So,
I am. Nice, man. Yeah, I'm moving back to New York City, in November, probably December. Starts school in January. So
nice.
If you guys come through the city when you get back.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and at Facebook by searching at Mentors4MIL, and please subscribe to our podcast. It's free, and it ensures you're the first to hear our latest podcast show. We have several options depending upon your device, and we're at iTunes, SoundCloud, at Stitcher, and at TuneIn Radio. Hey everyone, Robert here. I love supporting veteran-owned companies, and Mentors for Military recently partnered with Skeleton Optics to offer a 10% discount to our listeners. That's right, 10%. These aren't your regular run-of-the-mill sunglasses, by the way. The frames are handcrafted in Italy with Zeiss Vision lenses. Use the code MENTORS4MIL or MENTORS4MIL at skeletonoptics.com, and you'll receive your 10% discount automatically at checkout. Hurry up and get on over there to support a veteran-owned company.